Guess what's happening? Guess what's happening? Your man, Dr. Rory T. Edwards, is back. Is back and is back and is back with House Calls. Been on for a little while, but you know what they say in the 48 Laws of Power? Sometimes you got to disappear to make people appreciate you. And I believe that there have been a lot of people who have actually reached out to me and asked me what happened to House Calls. And I said, nothing happened to House Calls. It's just that I am changing over some things, and I'm trying to present something that I think is very going to be very valuable to you. And usually during the month of Black History, which is February, I usually try to present things, but I've been a little quiet in that area also. But today's going to be one of those particular days where I have to share some thoughts, especially since all of the rhetoric that has been going on in these conversations about what we've lost since the new administrations came into office and what we have to do as a black community to really thrive. But on this date, February 13th, 2025, I want to say I hope everybody year has started off well and you have things in order and great plans going forward. So let's talk about today and what the topic is. Today's topic is called Black Excellence versus Black Expectations. What's holding us back? Now, if you look at what I put in the initial message for people to look at, um, I did a lot of writing on this because this is something that's very near and dear to me, and those who know me very well know that I'm really in tune with discovering new information, historical information, factual information that sometimes is looked upon as angry information. Because see, we've been so inundated with so much negative information and so much negativity about ourselves that we believe that when somebody comes out with the truth, why would you do that when we're living so good? And if you consider what you're doing or what you're living in is so good, then I hope this show today is going to be a wake up call, because because I really want to expose some of the things that have been highly criticized about where we're going under this administration. And I just want to share stating that since I said that, I want people to really take a look at all of the presidents that have taken office in the United States of America since modern day democracy. And I want you to find one president, regardless of who you believe is your president. I want you to find one president that solely had an agenda for black Americans. When you find one, I'll be waiting. Please send me a message so I can share that information so that I am factual in what I'm stating and that it's going to give you an opportunity to help me share with my audience that, I stand corrected. But I want you to find one president that ever initiated something that really benefited us. And I know some of you out there, some of my older listeners are going to say the Civil Rights Act. And do I have some information for you at the conclusion of this speech about the Civil Rights Act, okay? And the DEI initiative. So I want you to stay tuned. You're listening to your man, Rory T. Edwards, Dr. Rory T. Edwards, on House Calls. And we're doing it on an unexpected day, unexpected information that's going to hopefully change the psychological way that you think, not just about yourself, but about others who share the same melanin as you. Right? So let's talk about that. So let's talk about what I said in this thing, and this is something that I have to share with you from the perspective of what the research that I did. It says black excellence is a phrase we celebrate, but do we fully understand its weight? There's a fine line between pushing ourselves to reach some new heights and carry the burden of unrealistic expectations that keep us boxed in. Are we truly striving for excellence, or are we just merely performing for validation within a system that was never created for us to win? That's the question that I really want to talk about. And tonight, we're breaking all the way down the differences between black excellence and the expectations that are holding us back. We'll be talking about systems, barriers, the hidden scars of history, and even the jealousy and division that weakens our collective power. But most importantly, we're finding solutions because if we don't confront the truth, we can't break down the cycle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about why am I saying this. I'm going to concentrate on two things. So we might be a little longer than most of our house calls are. But one of the things I really want to talk about too in the second phase of this conversation is the Super Bowl halftime. Because many of us, I've seen all of the comments on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of those social media platforms that I have the opportunity to look at. And we see many comments, and I want to break that down too about the Super Bowl halftime show. But let's talk about some of the information and so we talk about black excellence and black expectation. From the moment we stepped into the world, black people have been given a script, right? Work twice as hard, don't make mistakes, be exceptional, but not too successful, or they'll tear you down. You've heard that before. Some of you've heard that from your grandmother. Some of you may be too young to hear that, but you may hear it from people who are talking on TV. You may have heard that in that Super Bowl halftime. Magnificent display of a message. That's all I'm going to say right now. These messages, whether spoken or unspoken, shape our reality, but they are leading us to true greatness, or are they setting us up for failure? So let's talk about that. Even some of you have grown up and you've heard you always got to do twice as good. I remember even hearing you got to be twice as good when you go out. You got to be twice as smart just to compete. And who created that narrative? And why was that narrative so very important for us to be told and that narrative to continue for generations? Why was that narrative so important, right? Well, there are many reasons why we were told that. Because if we look at all of the information that we were able to uncover about the mind altering strategies that were used during the enslavement of people of color. And then when we look at all of the laws that were put in place after the Emancipation Proclamation, that people say was the opportunity to give us the right to be actual equal citizens, we have to really look at, was there really any equal citizenship based in that document? Some people never even read the document. Some people don't even realize that still in today in this Constitution that black people are still considered 3/5 of a person. And some people will say, well, no, they changed it. They didn't change it. They didn't change it. It's still in the Constitution. But you don't read it. What do? You let some coons and buffoons sometime who get up in office or who are given the microphone to be the representatives of us tell us that it's no longer there. All you got to do is pick up the Constitution and read it. All you got to do is look at the amendments that were put in place for the reasons that they were put in place. And did they really affect us? Who benefit the most? Who benefit the most? So let's go into some things. Let's understand what the difference between black excellence and black expectations are. What is black excellence? From my definition, let's say black excellence is about breaking barriers, defining success in our own terms, and leaving a legacy. You hear me talk about leaving a legacy all the time. If you are blessed enough to have children, isn't it your job for you to leave a legacy, something that your children can stand on, a foundation that your children can stand on, a foundation that your grandchildren can stand on? Isn't that what it's really about? Or is it about knowing that your elder was considered the best drinker in the city? Is that something that your grandchildren or your great grandchildren can stand on? I don't want to leave a legacy like that for my grandchildren or great grandchildren. Now, what is black expectation? Uh, the presence to conform, perform, or provide ourselves according to hand second-hand cultural norms, right? So what they want us to do is create a cultural norm that makes us always look like we're second-class citizens, always that we're never equal to gravitating to the levels for which they have defined for us to be in. And in some cases, we see it happening. We see people adapting this behavior. We see people who are changing the way that they think. They change the way that they talk. If you talk like you have some type of intellectual acumen or anything like that, the first thing they do is they say you're talking white. Why does being intelligent mean you're talking white? When if you really do historical searches, you realize that the individuals in this first kingdoms that occupied modern civilization are the fathers of mathematics, of language, of geometry, of medicine, of finances, of travel, of trading, of developing all those things. All of the things that you're hearing now in this month about who invented whatever. You got to realize how could you ever take a backseat to anybody if you really know the true essence of who you are and why you were created by what you were created by and who you were created for to do what you're supposed to do. Now, I know I said a mouthful there, but I want you to break it down, just like those of us who had to break down what Kendrick Lamar said on Super Bowl halftime show. I want you to understand what I just said. And what is the unspoken rule in understanding the difference between black excellence and black expectation? Why is success for black people often measured by entertainment, sports, or corporate achievements rather than ownership, innovation, and collective empowerment? Why is it that when we want to create something of our own, people won't support, right? They'll go to the other store because they think that the products that you have are less valuable or less quality than the person next door. And then when they do want to come in to talk to you, the first thing they want to do is they want you to give them the homeboy, homegirl, cousin, family hookup. Well, I know you charging 500, but could I get it for 200? No, you can't get it for 200. My intellectual property is worth a whole lot of more than what I am charging for. So if you're going to spend what they say, the black economy, the black community as a whole spends over $1.5 trillion a year, who are you spending it with? If you're not spending it with people who look like you, but you want to sit around and talk about we need to be more collectively organized as blacks, well, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. Where you put your money. Are you putting your money into the community? If you don't like what's going on in your community, don't sit around and talk about it. Make a change in your community, right? You got no problem with parents. I want to talk to you about this. You have no problem with coming up to the school, want to fight somebody for saying something to your child, but you're afraid to go in the street and talk about what is not legally right for you to do and what's not happening legally in your community. But you have a voice when it can be confrontational instead of a voice that will provide a solution. This is what we're talking about. What's the difference between black excellence and black expectation? Let's go to the historical and psychological weight of expectations, right? The generational trauma effect, how systematic oppression, slavery, and segregation continues to harbor in black people to operate in survival mode rather than in abundance. We are constantly on survival mode the way we do things. We're constantly in survival mode. We're never in I'm going to be the leader of my own narrative mode. We want somebody else to tell our story. We'll allow somebody to get up and you'll tell your story and somebody get up and say, well, what he said, and you allow him to do it. No, once you say what you have to say, that's your story. You don't allow people to change your narrative because they want other people to feel comfortable on what you said. If they truly knew who you are before they brought you in, then they would know what they're supposed to get from you. And they would inform their audience that this is not about one group against another group. It's about us collectively understanding the contributions of each. And once we understand the contributions and the value of each, we can then create a society that will benefit everybody. Please understand it. What's the second one? The crab in the barrel mentality. How many times have we heard that? The crab in the barrel mentality. Understanding the roots of jealousy, competition, and why some black people tear each other down instead of building each other up. Absolutely. Absolutely. People will sit around and talk to you as if you are the person they knew when you were 12. If you're the same person as you when you were 12, then that must mean that they cannot talk to you, because how could they grow and you not grow? How could anybody grow and you not grow? And they don't respect the growth that you had. Because you may grow at a different rate than I grow, doesn't mean that you should not celebrate my growth. My growth is based on my ambition and my intentional thought process about why I want to grow to where I want to be. That's what it is. You have to be intentional in your thoughts about where you want to be. And that's what eliminate that crab in the barrel mentality. Celebrate people who are doing well. Celebrate people who are growing. That's what it means. What is this? Respectability politics and the need to prove ourselves, right? How black people are continuing to seek white validation instead of creating independent power structures. That's what it is. And this is not an attack on white people. This is definitely not an attack on white people. It's an uplifting, hopefully motivating, innovating, stimulating conversation for people who are black. To start uplifting yourself, you don't need to compete with anybody. Nobody. No particular race. Nobody is better than you. Like the Rory T. Edwards group saying is, you can't withdraw what you did not deposit. So if you put yourself in an environment for where you are not qualified to be, then you then become in the mindset that I am not qualified to be here, but you put yourself there. So if you're going to jump into conversations, if you're going to jump into putting in applications for jobs and you don't have the qualifications, remember that statement. You cannot withdraw what you did not deposit. So make sure that that's where we are going when we're talking about the historical and psychological weight of expectations. Now let's see what the final one is. The psychological toll of carrying the race. The psychological toll of carrying the race. The exhaustion of constantly being expected or to be exceptional and represent all black people in every space. Some of you have been in conversations and people say, oh, you're different. And you would accept it and say, yes, I am, instead of turning to them and saying, well, you're different too. Now, what does that mean? See, what they do is people get you in a room and they believe that what they've watched on TV is how all black people act. And it's subliminally and systematically set up for the media to go in and find the most ignorant black person they can find and interview them, and then everybody sees this and they say, oh, that's how all black people work. But they know at their job that the person that they are sitting under is a black person. And they automatically move them into that category of ignorance, unintelligent, uneducated, not able to speak the language of success. But there are millions of black people out there. I just want you to know. So for those who believe that they are elevating themselves in their journey, I celebrate you. I celebrate you for not accepting mediocrity as a way of living. I celebrate you. Okay. Now, how do we break this cycle? How do we shift from expectations to true excellence? I'm going to give you a quick 5. I'm not even going to go into explanations. I'm going to give them to you because I really want to go into the Super Bowl halftime show, and I also want to go into who benefit from the Civil Rights Act and DEI. I want to go into those before I end. Now, how do we break the cycle? How do we shift from expectations to true excellence? 1, Define success for ourselves. Look at what success looks like. Define it. Write it down. Write down what your definition of success is, but write it down from the perspective of where you are operating in your lane of strength, understanding your circle of influence, who's around you. That's how you define success for ourselves. What's number one? Collaboration over competition. Yeah, see, when you do collaboration over competition, what you do, you eliminate the fact that both people are thinking, or the groups are thinking, that somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. See, collaboration is we all win. Competition is once somebody has to win or somebody has to lose. But I say, in my position of that in a competition, is that either I win or I learn. I never lose. I win or I learn. So even if you have to get into competition with somebody and you come out on the short end, what did you learn from competing in that situation that you can now come back better prepared the next time? Number three, ownership and economic power. What I talked about earlier. We need to go out and be entrepreneurs. We need to go out and create companies of large magnitude. We need to understand that putting our dollar back into our communities builds us up. We, again, are a $1.5 trillion economic powerhouse. And if we don't continue to build our communities, that will just be building someone else's is financial strength. So we need to understand that, right? What's for mental liberation? You got to understand why you were put in the skin you were put in. You got to understand that. Everybody should understand why you were put in the skin you were put in. But if you were put in the skin for greatness, you better demonstrate greatness every time you open your mouth, every time you open your eyes, every time you take a step, every time you take a breath, every time you look at someone to say something. You better make sure that excellence is the words that are coming out of your mouth. Because with excellence, you release it to the universe, and the universe provides you excellence back. So I want you to understand. And the last one, mentorship and legacy. Nobody can do it alone. We all stand on the shoulders of someone. Please don't think that you've accomplished what you've accomplished on your own and think that you paved the way. And who are you paving the way for if you believe you did it on your own? You understand? It may not look the way that you look that it looks now, but maybe your parents may not have gone to college, but I guarantee you that they provided everything you needed coming up. So when you talk about mentorship and legacy, each one teach one, each one reach one. Okay? That's what our job is. And once we start doing that, and once we start having them generational communications, the bridge is now burned. And we never employ carpenters to rebuild those bridges. We allow those bridges to never be rebuilt, and we never have those generational communications, or we never have those generational connections that we need to do. So those are the things that we need to do. Now, before I get into who benefits from the DEI and Civil Rights Act, and most people say that's where we came up as black people. Okay, stop all that. But let me go to the Super Bowl halftime show. How many of you watched the Super Bowl halftime show? If you watched it and you were confused when you first heard it, please chalk it up to not understanding the lingo of what may have been delivered in the song. Because I heard everybody say it was the worst halftime show I've ever witnessed. You know why? Because we've been inundated and we've been trained to look at people come up there and shake and dance and jump around and be half naked and sing popular songs that we can dance to. And we weren't ready. We weren't ready for the message of liberation. See, because we haven't heard the message of liberation. In 1970s, Gil Scott-Heron said the revolution will not be televised, but Kendrick Lamar said the revolution is being televised. And so many of us didn't even understand. We were like, what is he talking about? But if you look at some of the things that he did, and let me be honest and transparent, did I truly understand it? Not at all. Not at all. I looked at it, I tried to look at it, and the first thing I did, I got on the phone and I called my son. And I asked him, what was the message? What was the message I should have heard in this halftime show? And he broke it down. And then I looked on Facebook and I looked at a lot of the young people who expressed why it was so valuable and why the message was so powerful for them. And then I went to different places and I had conversations with younger people and I asked them, what did you get out of that halftime show? And they all presented to me a message of liberation, a message of unity, a message of a man who was not afraid to stand on what he was and who he is. And some of us older people said the exact same thing that was said to us when we came up and we were changing the way we talked, the way we dressed, the way we looked, the way we danced. And we said the same thing. You see how generationally things happen and we're not even aware that we're part of the conversation and the narrative? You see how that thing happens? And the first thing we said, that was the worst halftime show I ever seen. It was probably one of the greatest orchestrated, strategic, genius performances that has ever been on TV in our lifetime. And I'm not even a Kendrick Lamar dude. And when he said they're not like us, we are not like anybody. And once we take on that mentality that we're not like anybody, then we will be able to let go of all of the animosity, all of the jealousy, all of the things that hold us back from being productive and being just great individuals. And we don't have to worry about all the other stuff that's holding us back. So those are the things that I took from the halftime show. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought about the halftime show and some things you would like to share that I may share with people who are still believing that it was supposed to be more entertaining than informative. It's about time that we get informed because we're so scared right now with the narrative that we're pushing about this new generation, this new administration, and what are they going to do to us? Well, again, like I said in the first statement of this beginning of the show, you still have not commented on one presidential person who has had an agenda that elevated the black community. And again, I'll wait. And you know my email, my email is Rory T. Edwards. You see it on the hat, on the shirt, so you know exactly who's saying this. It's not somebody hiding behind a mask. Rory T. Edwards 1 at gmail.com. Please send me an email or a text message or something in reference to what administration had our best interests ever at hand. So since you said that, I'm going to answer that question for you. Because so many people said, no, Kennedy before he got killed, and then Johnson, he signed in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and so it gave us the rights to do certain things. The rights of from whom? There's no certain definition ever defined in life that a person gives you the right to do anything. The person gives you a right. And you believe that because that person signed something, an agreement, we had the rights and we didn't deserve those rights before that person had the audacity to give us that right. You need to stop it. If you're thinking like that, you need to stop it. You understand? So let me tell you about this real quick. I got to tell you who benefited from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was primarily intended to dismantle, segregation and discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. But its effects extended far beyond its original scope. So again, it was set up to be discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. So now let me tell you who benefited the most. Since you're worried about the DEI or, they're going to eliminate funds. Well, we've been creative. We've been so innovative in the way we've navigated this maze of life for so long that in the song of Gloria Gaynor, we will survive. Okay, but let me tell you who benefited the most. First and foremost, white women. Ironically, white women may have benefited the most due to the inclusion of sex in the Title VIII of the Act, which led to significant progress in gender equality in employment, education, and economic opportunities. Now, who was second? African Americans. The primary intended beneficiary, African Americans, saw major advancements in voting rights via the Voting Rights Act in 1965, desegregation, access to public accommodations, and legal prosecution against discrimination. So that's 1964 that we had. Woo, let me say this again, that we saw major advances in voting right and access to public accommodations. 1964. So from 14, what was it? What was the year? Uh, Really, it was 1655. But in reality, they said that we've been here for 300 plus years before we were able to get access to public accommodations, and we worried about somebody going to be in office for 4 years, and oh my God, he's going to ruin us. No, he's going to ruin himself. Just wait. Just wait. Okay? I just want you to wait and be patient and keep diligent in what you do. Let's talk about who else benefited. Other minority groups, Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, and immigrants also gained protections against racial discrimination in employment, education, and housing. Well, you better look at that a little bit closer and see who was able to come over here and get tax breaks, to get financial funding for housing, to buy land. So other people benefit. So I think we move down to number 3. And let's go down to number 4, which really wasn't a big group in 1964, but they say that they did, the LGBTQ plus community indirectly. Well, not originally covered, legal precedents streaming from the Civil Rights Act, especially regarding sex discrimination, eventually supported LGBTQ plus rights in later rulings such as Bostic versus Clayton County 2020, which extended workplace protection of LGBTQ and individuals. So even though they were trying to eliminate it recently, they were still extending it to protect other groups of people. But it was supposed to be originally for black people. Now, let's talk about all the things we're doing right now with the DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have aimed to address historical inequities and promote representation in education, corporate spaces, and leadership. Who benefited the most from this one? Because some of us are so mad talking about they're taking away our DEI initiatives, we're not going to be able to do this. Well, let's see who benefits the most from the DEI initiatives. Again, white women. Affirmative action policies and DEI hiring practices significantly increase white women's representation in professional fields, executive leadership, and academia. Who was second? Corporate America was second. Who was third? Highly educated minorities. So you understand what the minority group is. Anybody who is not considered, who does not check the box of white. Everybody else. So that means they were third, right? They were third. Who was fourth? Oh my God. Disabled individuals. Many DEI initiatives, including disability accommodations, fostering a more inclusive workplace and educational environment. That was fourth. The disabled individuals. Who was number 5? LGBTQ plus individuals were number 5. Who was number 6? Military and government institutions. And who was number 7? African Americans. And who's the loudest right now about what we lost? African Americans. We are great maids, terrible homeowners. We would clean somebody else's house all day, but we will definitely not put ourselves in a predicament to buy our own home, right? So those are the things that we must change. We have to change the way we think. We have to change the way that we perceive ourselves. And we have to do all of this in a way that represents us to the highest ability and our highest quality of life, so that we stop becoming maids for people and become homeowners. Stop becoming a consumer of everybody else's problems that we fall in last place in, even though we think this was set up for us. Never set up for us. Anything in this country, and this is not from a mad black man's perspective, this is from an educated, historically inclined, intelligent black man who has done his research to find out why why and what is the big dispute about why are they treating us so bad? And again, I want you to give me another day. What day did they really treat you well? What day did they really treat you well? Because somebody said, oh my God, they gave you a kudos, they gave you a certificate and told you did a good job, but you're doing twice the work as everybody else in the building, and you take that and you put it on a wall in a frame and put it on your wall, and you think that you've made it. Well, let me tell you what my final thoughts are. When the Civil Rights Act had a broader societal impact by outlawing segregation and discrimination, DEI initiatives have largely benefited white women, educated minorities, and corporations looking to enhance their workforce diversity. However, the intended goal, empowering black Americans and historically marginalized groups, has often been diluted or reshaped to benefit more privileged groups within these categories than ever in the history of our country. Guess what? I'm through today. What a way to come back. What a way to come back. Happy Black History Month. So I'm going to end with a wonderful note of love. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, another holiday that some people celebrate. Some people have been doing wrong all year, and they can get away with being loved tomorrow by bringing a dozen of roses and a box of chocolates, and you will be accepted as a great savior of the relationship. But if you do celebrate it, I hope that Valentine's Day in your relationships with your significant other is every day. Because the only way that we are going to grow as a community is, first and foremost, we have to replace the competition mode, the jealousy mode, all of those things that hold us back with love. And I'm not talking about physical love. I'm talking about celebratory love. Love that elevates people, that makes people feel that they are valued, they have values, and that they are valuable to our growth and our legacy. That's what it's all about. That's what it's truly all about. And for those who want to send comments, I accept all comments, and I read negative comments, but I don't entertain them because I will not change my energy for you. But if you want to supply any comments that we can share in our next episode of House Calls with Dr. Rory T. Edwards, I definitely invite you to do that. And so we celebrate this month, but for those of us who truly understand our contribution to being in our skin of African American contributors to society, every day for us is Black history. And for those who are fighting against equality of those of us who are occupying this melanated skin, I want you to know that a duplicate can never replace the original. With that said, I want you to realize that today also, as in Super Bowl Sunday, the revolution was televised. It's your man, Dr. Rory T. Edwards. I'm out. I hope you have a great rest of your time, and I hope to speak to you again soon. But this was a special edition of House Calls with Dr. Rory T. Edwards. So until we talk again, you be blessed. Stay healthy, stay well, stay conscious, and may the Creator guide you and guide your steps. So until we talk, Ashe.